32, is that right? It'll be flipped around. I'm not even gonna do that. 32 games entered, and at the end of this video, only one will remain. I posted 32 games in a bracket to our Discord and had our members vote it down from 32 to 16. Here's the initial bracket, and here's what they voted down to. Don't like it? Join the Discord and you can have a say in this, and you can also be entered in this very giveaway next time around. These are the top games that are new to me in 2022, or at least were at the time of the creation of this bracket. Not terrible, but not good either. A Feast for Odin versus Alhambra. 86% of the voting Discord members got this one correct, and the loser, who's exiting this bracket, the very first matchup, is Alhambra. Now, I've only played this game several times over on Board Game Arena. I do not have a physical copy. I've never played it in real life, but I did very much enjoy it. It was up against some stiff competition, that being A Feast for Odin. Alhambra is a really fun game about tile placements, but you're very limited in where you can place your tiles if you want to score well. Not only do you want to focus on getting certain colors of tiles to match up for points, but you also need to get, like, what's the word? The exterior, walls. You need to build walls, and walls block things out, but they're worth a lot of victory points. I really enjoyed the simple but difficult puzzle all at the same time. The one big downfall for Alhambra is I don't think I'll ever physically own it because it's at minimum a 3-player game, and that's just tough. Arc Nova. Trois. One is fun to say, but the other is more fun to play. So out goes Trois in the first round. It's a fantastic game. Again, just like Alhambra, only actually played this on Board Game Arena. I very much enjoyed my plays of it. It's one that's very obscure, and I've gone back to it a second and third time since my first initial play, and each time I'm having to relearn and re-remember rules because I'm sure this comes from only playing on Board Game Arena, but it's quite difficult to get down, to understand the ins and outs of this, and I have a very difficult time teaching this to anybody. In fact, I haven't even tried beyond, like, I told someone I'd teach them if they joined, and then we ended up just stumbling through it together because I had literally forgotten how to play. But Trois is a super fun game, and you're rolling dice, and then you're deciding where to place these dice. You can place them in the chapel to build a chapel. You can get money. You can fight armies and wars and bolster up your, I forget the word for it, but you can get not victory points, but influence that way. It's just a really fun game, but very difficult, obscure, and not like super heavy, but as far as only playing on Board Game Arena, this one is kind of a brain burner. I'm a big fan of anything that's like dice manipulation, Castles of Burgundy-esque, where like you roll your dice, and then the dice that you get are kind of how you take your actions. I like that. I like that bit of randomness, and that is combined with that Euro strategy stuff. I like the way that works. I very much enjoyed my plays with Trois. It's one that I just do not think would ever be tabled in real life. With that being said, the art is like perfect for it. It's bad, but not. I love the like medieval art. I think it's great, actually. It's ugly by today's standards, but I think it works really well. Kind of like Orleans. Like, I think that kind of works all right. But regardless, Trois is out the door and Arc Nova is in. I didn't mention how many people got this one correctly, but it is 100% of people got this one correctly. Role Player Adventures and Final Girl, one an epic cooperative campaign-like game, another an epic solo operative, if you want to say it like that, horror game. One of those we have a playthrough on our channel. 62% of people got this matchup correctly, with Final Girl exiting the stage. I loved Final Girl. The playthroughs on our channel, it was incredible, perfect, it was great, but I loved Role Player Adventures that much more. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that I was playing it with my wife Danielle, and we played it like 6 times over a 6-day period. I loved it. We haven't pulled it back out again because we were on vacation at the time, and kids, there's not more to that answer. That's it. Kids. Final Girl is incredible. It's thematic, it's exciting, it's dramatic, but it's still a solo game, or for the most part. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I've tried, though I really haven't given it its fair shake, to be a solo gamer, and it just hasn't worked for me. I'm much more into hobbying and building and painting miniatures than I am sitting down and playing a game by myself. So ultimately, despite Final Girl being incredible, and I wholeheartedly recommend it to any of you solo gamer fans out there, as long as you're cool with some randomness, it's a blast. But it's still solo. And in the end, it gets kicked out over role-player adventures. Long shot dice game or paper dungeons. 76% of you got this one correct when you selected long shot dice game to move along. So let's talk about paper dungeons and Alley Cat Games' dungeon scrawling roll and write game. I actually very much enjoy this game a lot. It's super fun. It's basically like a dungeon crawler in a role player adventures. It's basically a dungeon crawl in a roll and write, and it works really well. It's also one of the few that I've played roll and writes where the interaction and like a race to certain objective actually matters. Like in something like Welcome to and Cartographers, which are like the quintessential roll and writes, there's not much competition over anything shared. And in something like Paper Dungeons, there are like the gems on the map, where if you get to one, you cross it off for other people and they no longer can achieve that. Or when you're like fighting the monsters, someone could have just not ventured to where the monsters are and they just don't have to fight them this game. It's really cool and unique, and I love that like each time you play, you can do something wildly different. There's one time where I focused on leveling up entirely for points or getting as many gems as I could, and other times where I focused on fighting anything and everything that I possibly could. And they result in different outcomes and different experiences throughout the play. I've played this 4 or 5 times, I think, and yes, once solo, and I very much enjoyed it. But unfortunately for it, Long Shot the Dice game moves on in its place. My animals are being wild today. Next is Land vs. Sea, or Three Sisters Roll and Write, and only 57% of you got this one correctly when you chose Land vs. Sea to exit the tournament, and Three Sisters Roll and Write moves on. Land vs. Sea is an incredible 2 to 3 player tile placement game. I have only ever played it at the 2-player count, where you are playing literal land versus sea. You're placing down tiles kind of like Carcassonne is how I would compare it, and basically you're trying to close off segments of either land or sea, and you get victory points when doing so. Inside these segments there can be bonus points, there can be reefs, there can be mountains that all accrue and accumulate to larger and larger point values, and it's really tense because out of like the 5 times I've played this, at least 2 of them have come down to like the second to last or the very last tile placement, where there was a massive sprawling 30-point land or sea open, and then they were finally able to get the right tile to close it, or they were holding on to it that whole time, whatever it may be, and that swung the entire game. And it's dramatic and it's epic and it's fun, but throughout the whole time, throughout the game, it's tense, and you're following your opponent's every move, trying to make sure that if they put an opening there that you can close and screw them over, you're gonna do it. Do you like that voice crack? I like that voice crack. Even still, Land vs. Sea is a great, fantastic game, but it is one that I'm calling. I liked it, but I don't think it's one that I'm gonna get to the table repeatedly over and over and over again, and I'd rather someone else enjoy that. Carcassonne wasn't my favorite either. Again, games that I've enjoyed, but not that really have that sticking power, or should I say, that enthusiasm for. Nothing that I really want to pull out time and time again. So bye-bye, Land vs. Sea, and onwards, Three Sisters Roll and Write. Deception, Murder in Hong Kong, the wild deduction game where you're trying to figure out the murderer, or Innovation, the wild civ building game where you're trying to destroy your opponent any means necessary and anything can happen. Which moves forward? 57% of you once again got this one correctly when you chose Innovation to move forward. Deception Murder in Hong Kong is an incredible game, one that I've played with my friends Jeff, Jamie, Kyle, and the Doolins and Danielle. We had a blast with it. I will say we played it only 3 times, and we only played it with the bare bones rules, so I've yet to experience the additional roles that you can add into the game, really just the forensic scientist, murderer, and the investigators. The murderer won all 3 games of this that we played, but again, I do think that has something to do with not using the additional roles. Despite that, it's a really, really fun game. I really enjoyed the 30-second time limit, no more, no less. You can't explain yourself anymore. Just take a guess at who you think it's gonna be and try and convince other people to join your side. It's one that it's not so much about lying, which I enjoy. I like the Resistance, I like those other social deduction games, but they focus so heavily on the lying and other people putting pressure on you, right? Because it's just an open floor. You can converse, you can conversate over anything you want. Whereas in Deception, you're limited to basically just making an accusation, and that's it. So there's no like bickering back and forth or no pressure or anything like that, because sometimes there can be some feel bad moments in those social deduction games when you feel like you're being targeted and you're either not lying, but you don't know, like you don't know how to get out of it, or you're trying to lie, but they're like bombarding you, and that can be the fun, but it's not fun for some people. Deception Murder in Hong Kong really seems to evade that, and very nicely, and I really enjoyed that game. Unfortunately though, innovation still moves forward. Return to Dark Tower or Picture Perfect, two wildly different games, and maybe that's why only 33% of you all got this one correctly when you said that Picture Perfect would be moving forward, because it is. Return to Dark Tower is an incredible cooperative game. It's like if Pandemic were cool and if Pandemic were good. Sorry, Pandemic lovers. It's just what it is. I like to crap on Pandemic. It's not a bad game, but Return to Dark Tower is better. It's got that same kind of escalation where the skulls are falling out of a literal moving, mechanical, turning tower that's screaming at you. It's epic. It's incredible. It's a toy. It's such a centerpiece to this game that it really just elevates it above any other kind of similar experience that I've played thus far. Return to Dark Tower is so cool. Everyone has unique and asymmetric factions that are doing different things around the map. Questing, you're fighting, you're trying to gain more warriors and build up an army, and it's just really epic. I've played this game twice and I would be happy to play it again. I absolutely enjoyed my time with it, but unfortunately it still got left behind Picture Perfect. That was cheesy. And for our final matchup in the Sweet 16, we have Wonderland's War versus Lost Cities. The new hotness versus the old Reiner Knizia stand-up two-player game. 100% of people got this correct when they picked Wonderland's War to move forward. Now, I very much enjoy Lost Cities. I have only played it on Board Game Arena. I do not have a physical copy. I don't have the stats in front of me, but I've played it at least a dozen times, like 10 times. It's gotta be around that mark. I've played mostly with my friend Kenny. He is way better at this game than I am. I'm quite poor at Lost Cities, but it's just so much fun. It's one of those games where you're dealt cards and you just kind of have to make the most of it. So you're trying to make these runs in different colors. There's 5 different colors, and you're trying to make runs. But if you don't equal 20 points, then actually it's negative for you. And each turn you have to play a card down. You play it on your side, which starts at negative 20 points once you put a card down, or in the center, which means it's available to your opponent. So it's a game about like deducting what you think your opponent has based off what they're playing, and basically like a risk and reward thing. Like I could put this down in the middle, meaning I don't mess up any of my board, but then that's gonna leave Kenny or whomever you're playing with the opportunity to take it. And it's really just a nice puzzle, something super fun. I've played it with a few different people. I feel like most of whom have come away enjoying it, but there have been a couple times where it's just not hit. For me though, Lost Cities is great, but it doesn't match up to Wonderland's War. In the Elite 8, our first matchup is Feast for Odin versus Ark Nova. This is a battle of the big bad Euros, right? This is an epic battle, and it took me longer than I'd like to admit to decide what was moving forward here. Ultimately though, A Feast for Odin is getting left behind. I have played both A Feast for Odin and Ark Nova. I've played Ark Nova twice in person. I've played A Feast for Odin once in person and the rest online on Board Game Arena, and I've enjoyed all of those plays immensely, but Ark Nova moves forward. Feast for Odin is a Uwe Rosenberg big box game in which you are a Viking pillaging and farming and raiding and leaving. You can leave. You can send your Vikings elsewhere. It gets you points. God, my voice cracks today, dude. It must be this sparkling coffee that's just super weird. Or the 90s shirt. It's taking me back to when I was 5 in 1999. Feast for Odin is a great game. I really enjoy it. I considered buying it multiple times, but despite that, it's just too big and unlikely to be played probably at the 2-player count when my wife and I can just like play on Board Game Arena, easy peasy. But I really like this game. I've yet to like find a certain strategy that really, you know, works every single time. I do think there are obviously stronger and weaker ones. Like farming is much weaker in my opinion than something like pillaging. Yeah, raiding and pillaging. But I've heard the Norwegian expansion improves upon the game immensely and makes certain strategies that aren't viable actually viable, which means I'm very much looking forward to trying that when the time comes. But despite that, Doolin has mentioned this in previous videos, and I'm going to kind of talk about that a little bit. Heavier games on Board Game Arena are great because they're much easier to table. They're something I don't have to purchase. But also there comes a point where like I'm playing it, but I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. Because I play Board Game Arena to play with my friends and have fun. You know, if I'm playing like Root, I want to win. If I'm playing, I want to win, even if I'm playing a Feast for Odin, I don't mean that, but like, I don't necessarily play my best. I just kind of make choices and see what happens. And I think that that's leading me down like a slippery slope where like I'm not invested in these games and then I lose like the luster of them. And I don't think that's a Feast for Odin's fault. I think it's my fault in how I'm approaching my plays of a Feast for Odin, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But I still very much enjoy it. If you, Dylan and Carlo, are watching, I still absolutely prefer a Feast for Odin over Agricola, which I have played now on BGA. I don't like it. Feast for Odin's great, but it's not as good as Ark Nova. Moving on. Next up, we have Role Player Adventures and a Long Shot Dice game. I talked a little bit about Role Player Adventures in the last one, but it is this epic campaign cooperative experience, and Long Shot the Dice game is this dice chucking. No, it's not even, it's a roll and write. It's a roll and write in which you're betting on horses, and it's a great time, and I love it very much. But despite that, it is moving forward. Gotcha. Role Player Adventures is leaving behind here. It's ending its tournament run in the Elite 8. It's an incredible game. I've really loved it, but it is a little more of a slow burn and a long haul than something like Long Shot the Dice game, which is easily tableable and exciting. Role Player Adventures is great fun. I love how meaningful your decisions are. There are times where we've made decisions in Chapter 2 that have crucially and consequentially affected Chapter 5, and that was exciting, and it meant something because you know that the way that you're playing this game and the decisions you're making have weight, and it's not just like whatever, it doesn't matter what I do. No, it does matter what you do, and it matters so much that sometimes you'll make a decision that your wife will get very mad at you for making because you didn't realize something bad was going to happen, but it did, and she didn't like it. Maybe that's why we haven't played in a while. Regardless, it's a great game. I really, really, really like it, and I want to table it again soon. I think there's 11 chapters, or maybe 12. We're on Chapter 6, so we're about halfway through this game so far. I do want to finish it. I don't know if I want to do the expansions. We'll see how we feel about it once we finish the game in its entirety, but it's great fun, and it's not a campaign game. Like, you can play it again. I can sell it and someone else can play it. I can give it away and someone else can play it. And I love that about it. Role Player Adventures is awesome, just unfortunately not as awesome as Long Shot the Dice game. Our next matchup in the Elite 8 is Three Sisters Roll and Write versus Innovation. Two very small box games. Innovation literally like this big. Three Sisters is a standard roll and write size, but one of which is about farming. And it's very similar to Fleet the Dice games, made by the same people. So if you've played that, you've kind of played this, though I do think Three Sisters is better. Innovation is a hard game to describe. It's just a cutthroat game of screwing over your opponents and one-sided, lopsided victories and defeats that often happen because one person wasn't able to get their engine up and running, and it is brutal. But it's delightful, which is why it's moving forward. And Three Sisters Roll and Write game is ending its run in the Elite 8. I've got to stop saying the same thing. I think I've said it every time, but I'm going to say it again right now. It's ending its run in the Elite 8. It's a great game. I've played it 4 or 5 times. Actually, no, more than that, because I've played this game 4 times solo. When I first got it, it took me a while to actually get it down to the table with anyone else, but I played it myself over and over again. And I can tell you what, that girl, I forget her name, the grandma, the farmer, the aunt, I don't know what her name is. She's brutal. She's mean. She's like, oh, you wanted to farm in plot 3? No. Better luck next time. She's a jerk. When I play 2-player, that doesn't happen. And I like that that's different because playing 2-player, it's much more open-ended. Playing with other people, you can do more. When you play solo, like, she will cut you off. And it hurts, but it's fun. I like that. This was a very tough matchup for me to decide between these two games because they're wildly different and there are pros and cons about them both. But ultimately, I've played Innovation 30, 40 times on Board Game Arena. I actually just culled my physical copy because I owned it for over a year, never got it to the table. But on Board Game Arena, it's incredible. And I've played it enough, and I want to continue playing it. Even if I get trounced 6-0, 5-0, whatever it may be, I love it. It's just so fun. It's quick. It's simple. I don't know. I shouldn't even be talking about it right now because I should be focusing on Three Sisters, which got left behind. But if you like meteor combo-rific roll and writes, this is definitely one to try out. It's probably one of, if not my favorite roll and write that I have played. Close to. At least true roll and write. More on that later. The final matchup in the Elite Eight is Picture Perfect versus Wonderland's War. The PP versus the WW. I'm leaving that in. Despite how much I loved it, Picture Perfect's run comes to an end, say it with me, in the Elite Eight. Okay, I'm doing too much. Picture Perfect's a great game. It's a deduction game, it's arcane wonders. It's basically you're trying to fulfill every single objective that you possibly can. Each little character that is in this portrait have different objectives. Little boy Bobby may want to be in the front or beside this person, and also not be seen, which means Bobby is a jerk. He wants to be in the front and not be seen, so it's impossible to accomplish all of Bobby's tasks. But then someone else may have different objectives that are like, I want to be next to this person and the tree and in the back right row. But the thing is, you're finding these cards, you're placing them where you believe will be the most optimal place for them to go. But then you may have to pass that along elsewhere. And you may not see that back ever again. And then you may get someone else that makes you need to move that person. And now it's up to you to try and remember what they wanted while also fulfilling the next person's objective. Ultimately, you're just passing around things, trying to fulfill everyone's objective, but forgetting along the way what this person's objective was. And of course, sometimes it's impossible to do all the objectives. It's wild, it's fun, I love it. I thought it was gonna be a gimmick, I really truly did. I thought it was gonna be something I played one time, and I was like, that's cool, I don't need to play it again. But I think I've played this 4 times now, and I've loved it ever since. It also has a bit of a special memory for me, because it was the first game we played of 2022. We played it at midnight, 2021 into 2022, and it was a great time. But unfortunately, it does end its run now. Which leads us to the final 4. We have Arc Nova versus Longshot Dice Game. We have Innovation versus Wonderland's War. Let's start off with Arc Nova versus Longshot the Dice Game. This was, in my opinion, the single most difficult matchup for me to decide in this entire bracket. I had a heck of a time trying to figure out which one was going to move forward. But ultimately, I had to go with my gut, which is Longshot the Dice Game moves on to the finals. And Arc Nova, the game that has had this meteoric rise to the BGG Top 100, ends its run in the Final 4. I'm gonna make this into a joke and no one else is gonna think it's funny. It's great. Arc Nova is a fairly heavy Euro game, which is actually Matthias Wiggy's first design ever, which is incredible. This game has shot up to, I believe, number 16 on the BGG Top 100, which is just, wow, incredible. However, contrary to like Lost Ruins of Arnak, I think Arc Nova deserves its place. Bazinga. Arc Nova is so fun. Most of it boils down to its action selection system, which I've heard has been implemented previously in Civilization: A New Dawn, I think. Don't quote me on that, but I want to play that game now, if that's the case. This action selection system is basically a ramping of power. When something is in the one spot, it's at its weakest. But to get it to move up, you have to play something ahead of it. So I can play the 5 to the 1, the 5 to the 1, the 5 to the 1 over and over again, and always be getting the most powerful activation. However, I may not want to actively take those actions. And ultimately, you can actually lock yourself into some pretty terrible situations where you are unable to build or unable to do something, and it can really hurt you. But that's something that I really enjoy about Arc Nova, is like the forward planning. However, another thing that to me is a positive, but for many can be quite a big negative, is this giant deck of cards. Literally, I'm not kidding, probably this tall deck of cards. and you're not going to get through all of them in one game. So you're planning around a very particular card like Big Elephant or Gorilla or something to complete your zoo and get you mass amounts of points. It's probably not a good one because it's quite unlikely you see the specific card that you're looking for. I'm okay with that. I like games where you're given certain things and you have to make the most of it. I don't necessarily love games, at least yet, where it's very like procedural and you can always do the best thing you can unless someone messes you up. Like, I like the game to mess me up, if that makes any sense at all. I'll have to give that some more thought later, but I'm thinking on this now, and that's kind of how I approach games. I like to do everything the best that I can with what I've got, and I like that bit of randomness involved to it. But beyond that, it's pretty. The production is not incredible. It's not bad by any means, but it's not amazing. The art is also the same, pretty good, not great, kind of like photography with like a filter on. It's whatever, it's fine, but ultimately you don't come to Ark Nova for the production, you come for the gameplay. I also think the theme is really good. To me, that like zoo theme where you're trying to get some like conservation points, but also some appeal, and like the way the game ends where they cross paths is really unique. Like, you can't just focus on appeal, you have to focus on them both or you're gonna lose. And scores in this game are like small, like really like negatives or very slightly positives. I mean, of course you can get high scores, but I'm not good at board games, so that doesn't happen to me. Ultimately though, Ark Nova is an incredible game, but unfortunately is beaten by a long shot the dice game. Boy, this was a very, very difficult decision for me to make. The hardest one in the entire bracket. But here we are. On the other end of the Final Four, we have Innovation versus Wonderland's War. Wonderland's War is a area control, no, not dice, not deck, but bag building game. This is by Skybound Tabletop, designed by Tim Eisner, Druid City collaboration, beautiful production, lovely minis, lovely bags, lovely chips. I got the deluxe, of course I did. It's incredible. Then you have Innovation, which again, I've already said, is very hard to talk about, which makes it difficult because I'm about to have to talk about it because it's losing to Wonderland's War. If at some point in time throughout this video it seems like I love Wonderland's War, this is because I love Wonderland's War. So Innovation, right? It's a card game in which there are like 10 eras of cards. The first eras start off quite weak, and then as they grow and get to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they become increasingly powerful, game-changing when you get into that upper echelon 8, 9, 10. With that being said, there are still some 3, 4, 5 cards that are bonkers, and if someone gets one on the table, you have to do everything in your power to get it off of their tableau, or the game's over for you in a matter of turns. It's wild, it's unbalanced. I've yet to see a game end in like the same way multiple times. There was one time, probably on my 20 plus play of this game, where I was playing with a couple friends, Jeff from Foster the Meeple in particular, and Jash from Tablenauts, kind of. I mean, he is, you just haven't seen him in a while. I was playing with them, and the game ended in such a way where Jeff literally blew up the entire board, like everything. Jeff played a card near the end of the game that wiped the whole board. Wiped it. You started over. It's nuts. I had never seen that before. I think it was called Fissure. This game is just, it pulls no punches, or it pulls all the punches, rather I should say. It's wild, it's absurd, it's unfair, it's luck-based, and I freaking love it. But unfortunately, it does bow out now. Which leads us to a grand finals of Long Shot the Dice Game and Wonderland's War. I'm going to talk about both of these extensively before I make my final decision. But before that time comes, I want to remind you again, if you want to vote on these games, if you want to participate in the bracket and have an opportunity to win this very giveaway the next time we do it, you need to be in our Discord. There's a bracket challenge channel in which every time we're doing this, I'm going to post to the channel and you all get to vote on it. only open for Discord members. So if you want to join in on the giveaway, be there. Link in the description. It's a great place. We all have a good time, all fun, all friendlies, no meanies. Thank you, Jamie. It's just a great place to be around friends who love this community and this hobby so much. So I sincerely encourage you to join the Discord. And of course, subscribe to our channel, like it so other people can see and other people can join the Discord. And if you're interested and you like what we do, and maybe want to pay for some dog training so he'll stop barking during the video, subscribe to our Patreon. Link in the description below. And a quick shout out to those of you that are already in our Discord and already subscribed to our Patreon. We can't thank you enough. Your support means the whole world to us. The Discord is one of the best things to have come out of this entire YouTube journey. So thank you. And for those who aren't there, I hope to see you there. Now, moving into the championship round, we have Draco, the cat. This is really bad. I'm not even sure why I'm still drinking it. Probably because my throat's dry and I don't have anything else down here. I mean, there is some glass cleaner over there, which might be preferred at this point in time. Oh, disclaimer, don't do that. I mean, don't do this either. Not very good. But don't drink glass cleaner. For our finals, we have Longshot the Dice Game versus Wonderland's War. Longshot the Dice Game is a fairly new roll and write game in which you're basically betting on horses. It's a roll and write, but it's also a betting game. It's like a mix of Camel Up and a roll and write. Then you have Wonderland's War, which is a area control bag building game, kind of a mix of Blood Rage and Quacks of Quedlinburg. Both of these games into the finals fairly evenly matched. I've played them both several times at various player counts and I love them both dearly. Longshot the Dice Game is basically going to have you rolling dice, moving forward horses, and marking things off on your board. Yes, there are absolutely combos like a roll and write game, where if you mark off this concession stand, it allows you to write something here, which allows you to make a free bet, which can make you win the game if it's towards the end. There really is quite a bit of strategy there. It's definitely not a combo-rific roll and write, something like Three Sisters. It's more of a betting game combined with a roll and write. So I struggle to even put this in like the true roll and write category, but that just makes me a gatekeeper. So you can put it wherever you want. But I love this game. It's an absolute blast, and it's actually one of the very few games where Doolin owns a copy, and then I then go out and get myself a copy of my own. That is not something that I do regularly. Normally it's me getting rid of my copies to go to Doolin's house, because I still feel like I'll have access to them. But this one, I actually bought one of my own. And that's saying something. Then that leaves us with Wonderland's War, a game that is basically broken up into two phases: a tea party phase in which you're walking around the tea party drafting cards, and those cards have chips that are being added into your bag, or supporters that are being added into the board, or a number of different things. And then in the second phase, you're going to war at these various places around Wonderland, and you're fighting your opponents, and you're drawing out of your bags to basically add power to your fight, or to save your supporters, or if you get madness, your supporters die, and that is how you basically lose a battle. If you run out of supporters in the area, you basically lose. You're gone. It's super fun, and I love like the combining of mechanisms. I was pretty hesitant when I heard people describe this as Quacks meets Blood Rage, two games that I love dearly, but I didn't feel like would work, but I'm here to tell you that it does. So, which one of these moves forward and is crowned champion of Max from Tablenauts 2022 Best Games New to Him bracket of the first 5-6 months? The game that wins is Wonderland's War. They are both incredible games, and this was a very difficult decision for me to make, but ultimately, I have had the most fun with Wonderland's War. It is just a blast. I have loved every play of it. I continuously think about this game. I think it's such a nice mesh of strategy and luck and fun. Like, you don't think too hard about what's going on, but at the same time, there is a puzzle to be figured out, and there is strategy and depth in the decisions that you're making. It's just an absolute riot. And I want to play it over and over and over again. And it's a massive box, and I still love it. And I want to continue to table it. And I've introduced this to 3 people, I believe, and every single one of them have walked away from this game absolutely in love. Like I know Kenny, for example, who I've mentioned several times throughout this video, played this game with me, was blown away. It's like his biggest surprise of 2022. He went out and bought his own copy of Wonderland's War. It's that good. It's so fun. I can't tell you enough how much I enjoy this game. So ultimately, although Wonderland's War does take the crown, Long Shot the Dice Game is a very, very worthy runner-up in my bracket. Let me know what you think would have been the right answers. Let me know what you think about my decisions. Are there any that you very much disagree with? I'd love to know. Now, before we leave, let's talk about the giveaway. I did this in point value, basically. For every correct matchup that you got a point. And then by getting the final matchup right, like the winner, I was gonna give you 2 points. Maybe this needs adjusting in the future, but for now, we had one single victor with 16 points, whose only missed answer was between Picture Perfect and Return to Dark Tower, in which they chose that they picked that I would choose Return to Dark Tower. And that person is Kenny. Which, congrats, Kenny. Puts me in a bit of a predicament. Because you see, Kenny's a good friend of mine. He lives fairly close. He comes and plays fairly regularly. Now, to be fair, we met through Tablenauts. We met through Discord. This isn't someone that I've known for my entire life. But out of these games, I've played A Feast for Odin with him. I've played Ark Nova. I've played Return to Dark Tower. I've played Picture Perfect. I've played Wonderland's War, and I've played Lost Cities. So we've played several games together. And he has a bit of an insight into how I feel about these games. So, despite there not being any rules for Kenny winning, Kenny has graciously decided to pass on his winnings elsewhere. So what I was going to do is I was going to give away a copy of the winning game, which in this case, Wonderland's War. With that being said, it's kind of hard to get a hold of right now. And also, Kenny already owns a copy. And Kenny has decided to pass on his winnings because it's a bit of a cheating circumstance. But again, no rules. Kenny's just that stand-up of a guy. So what we have here is 3 ties for second place. I believe at 13 points each. We have Richard, we have Lunaroo, and we have Springham, all from our Discord. Well, of course, because that's the only way you can enter, so join our Discord. You 3 have tied for second, and so I'm taking the value of Wonderland's War, which is about $60 retail, and dividing it amongst you 3, and I'm just gonna give you 3 a gift card to your retailer of choice, and I hope that that is a fair way to end this and complete this bracket. Moving forward, I might introduce some different rules for scoring and maybe some different rules for tiebreakers. We were gonna just do a draw out of a hat, but that felt unfair when I had $60 and 3 winners and a pretty even split, 20 bucks. And despite it not being a $60 game, I'm hopeful that all 3 of our winners, our victors, are perfectly satisfied with a $20 gift card to their retailer of choice. So, if you want a chance at entering the giveaway and winning the giveaway next time, we only had just over 20 entries to this bracket. So that's a solid chance, a 5% chance of you winning. And if you watch the videos, a much greater than that chance, because I talked about a lot of these games and my feelings on them throughout the past couple of months. So you probably had a pretty good gauge of where I stand on these. So if you want a good opportunity to win some games or win some gift cards, join the Discord. And for those of you that don't want to join the Discord, it's okay. Please just like and subscribe. We appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Max's 2022 Best Games New to Him bracket made in the first 5-6 months of 2022. Maybe we'll do a second half 2022 one later this year. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time. And as always, I don't have one of those. Maybe I should get one. But as it stands, I don't have like an outro. And as always, don't drink glass cleaner, drink sparkling, naturally flavored coffee vanilla water. Or don't.